Are you going by Andrew or Andy?
Andy's fine. I mean, especially since Andrew Brewer's in the race.
Right.
Although it's going to be Andrew on the ballot, but
Right.
I figure people are smart enough to figure that out.
Hopefully. Okay.
We rolling, Bob?
We are rolling your business.
So I was thinking the other day, I first met you 20 odd years ago when I was hired to be the lobbyist for Washington Electric Co-op and Vermont Electric Co-op, and this was part of resisting the attempt to create retail electric situation in the state where people wouldn't have dedicated utilities, and then met you, and you were the director of this little fledgling operation called Renewable Energy Vermont, which was the first trade association of renewable energy and efficiency companies in the state, and it's and what it has grown to now is amazing. And one of the reasons that I am just delighted that you're running in this race is that unfortunately, since I and others have left the legislature recently, there seems to be a big vacuum in leadership to create more forward movement to achieve the goals that the state of Vermont has put forth. And when I think about going back all that time to your past history of being the first executive director of Renewable Energy Vermont, and then having worked as a regulator with the Department of Public Service, and then also being very helpful in creating the fund, the Clean Energy Development Fund, which you then became and are the current director of that today. I was thinking, many of us have been thinking that it is just the person like you that has the wherewithal, the experience, the history, the background, the know-how. You've been in the building, you've been a lobbyist, you've been a regulator, you've been on the private industry side of things. You know all the players, you know what it takes to get legislation through.
You'd think that we had planned it out.
You'd think that we had planned it out.
Because it has turned out to be fortuitous the way that's worked out. And I do remember meeting you in the building when I first got in there, and I didn't know what I was doing. And you were like, you guys need some help. And this is what you do. And you were very helpful, and I learned a lot from you as the lobbyist, and then when you were in the energy committee.
Well, the secret is I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, but you do a good job of acting like
yes.
you do. Yeah.
Yes.
And it was great. And that was great experience, not only learning how the legislature works and learning from you and Dostis and other legislators that I met along the way, Scudder Parker from his time in the Senate. So I learned a lot about the whole process and how the building works and how you got to be careful of who you piss off today, because you might need their favor tomorrow. Right. And you can be strident, but you also need to be respectful if you really want to get things done in the building. But then, I learned a lot there, learned about the businesses, and that was the whole purpose of REV, to get those businesses involved and learn what they need and what benefits they can bring to the state.
And you
can work for this.
Took that organization. I believe when you were the first director, there was 6 companies or something like that involved, and there's well over what today? 500 or something like that. 500 members, and we've created 17,000 jobs in just the. Is that just the solar, or is that the
total clean energy was over 19,000? It kind of dipped a little bit this year, which kind of speaks to your question about are we losing some of the momentum we had going when you were still in the State House. Right. But the renewable energy industry has grown tremendously, and we've done a lot more renewable generation than when we were talking about creating the Clean Energy Development Fund. We were concerned that 1/3 of our power came from nuclear energy.
Right.
we got rid of that. I think that was a huge success that we sometimes forget what a big deal that was now. And we're slowly filling that third up with more and more renewables, and that's something to be successful of. And the more that we can do it locally, the more economic development. And that's something that I think the model that we did in renewable energy, I talk about other things, whether it be childcare or healthcare or other goals that we have in the state, we can do that local economic development to meet our goals and build local businesses.
So as you know, I spent 14 years as a legislator. 12 of those years on the Natural Resources and Energy Committee, and 8 of those 12 years as the chair. And prior to that, as you also know, I lobbied for this kind of stuff for 7 years. So what I know that it takes time to learn how to get things done in that building. And unfortunately today, we don't have the luxury of that time anymore. From my perspective, and what I'm sad about is that I don't see Vermont going forward anymore. I see it actually going backwards. And what I see in you and what I know about you, which makes me very excited to have you in this race, and it's imperative that you win and be there, is because you have the history, the knowledge, the background, the personality, because I've seen you in action. You know how it works. And it's really, really important to get people elected to the Senate and the House that know how it works. They can hit the ground running. We don't have the luxury of time to have people be trained in this process, and that's why I have come out of my retirement and am actively and enthusiastically supporting you and hoping that people will get this message and understand that yes, all the other people in the Democratic primary they're good people. There's no question about it. There's no bad people there. But you have skills and quality and experience and history that none of the others, including the 2 sitting senators, have. And that's why I need you to work hard.
All right. Well, I am working hard. I'm trying to get that message out there and let people know my background. I'm on the ballot as being from Montpelier. Sometimes people don't know what I've done because they see, well, he hasn't been active in Montpelier, but I've been very active in Marshfield, where I lived for 20 years, and I was on the Energy Committee and I was on the Select Board and participated in that community in any way that I thought would make it a better community. I was on the fire department, and so I think I do have that background of being focused on community and how do you create healthy communities, but I have the expertise in the background specifically on renewable energy. If people are really concerned about climate change and our renewable energy economy, I do have a tremendous background in that. And it, like I said, it seems like it was all the plan all along to become a senator, but that wasn't the plan. I was happy with the work that I'm doing, but because the fund might be running out of money, this would be a good next step for me to kind of lead some of the next step in our clean transportation. I think even though we've taken maybe a step back on electricity, we have a good plan that we can follow, but we don't have a good plan for how we're going to do clean transportation and how are we going to do clean renewable heating. We really need the same kind of level of the speed program and then the renewable energy standard that we did for electricity. We need to do that for transportation and for home heating. And I'm really excited to try to work on that, and I think I can work well with others, and some of these things are going to be big things and we'll need a coalition, and I think I can build that coalition and be a way to build the bridges that are necessary.
And I think from being the director of the Clean Energy Fund that it is, as you've said, it is way more than just electricity, and there are all sorts of energy sources out there for heating that speak to the renewable side of things, but you also know, because of your history, that it's more than just energy. It's more than just energy efficiency. It's about jobs. It's about tax revenue. It's about the clean environment. It's about what makes Vermont Vermont. And you know, we unfortunately with one of our renewable energy sources, wind, we got into a lot of difficulty with a conversation in this state that should never have gotten divisive as it was. And I know you understand that, and I know that you can head off something like that happening ever again.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's important, the economic development stuff again. Like if we wanted to, we could buy all our renewable energy from Canada.
Yeah.
They have enough power, we could just say, we're just going to buy it all from Canada. But we would miss out on that opportunity and a responsibility to create some of our own energy and just the huge economic development opportunity, keeping those dollars in state. And right now we're exporting hundreds of millions of dollars for fossil fuels, for transportation and home heating. The more of those dollars we keep local, are going to be increasing our economic development. And so things like advanced wood heating, that's wood that we can get from our local forests in a sustainable way, supporting the forest industry. That's a critical part of our working landscape. If we want to keep forests as forests, we need to use them.
So speak to that. You know, very few people know that the biggest threat today to keeping Vermont is not big wind on our ridge lines.
No.
It's fragmented forests in this state, and our forest lands are not only threatened by what's happening with climate change. It's threatened because most of the property is owned by folks who are getting old.
Right, and it's breaking up into smaller and smaller lots, so it's harder to do an economic.
And only 50% of our forest land is in current use, and that's the only 50% that we know about that has a plan going forward in the future. And the rest of it is owned privately, not in current use, and there's no succession plan in place or anything. And it's really, really important that we have someone like you who understands that, being in the legislature and can begin to reach out to these owners and get a policy going forward.
And we've been doing that, reaching out to the foresters and the large landowners to say, like, how can we help the low wood market increase so that you will keep your forest as a large forest and manage it sustainably for the future? Because otherwise they'll carve it up into lots and sell it and move on to something else.
Right.
We want them to be able to manage it as forests, for forever. And to do that, they need to be able to sell those products for wood pellets and wood chips that are going to heat our buildings, our schools. Especially, I think advanced wood heating is good for large heating needs, like the whole downtown of Montpelier is heated with wood chips. Our schools and college campuses. We've done a lot, but there's still a lot more that we could do. I think when you were still in the legislature, the legislature supplied funding for schools to switch to wood chips. Now they don't supply that anymore. And right now fossil fuels are cheap, but it's not always going to be that way. And with all the talk about funding for schools, a way that we can help sustain them, their low funding in the future is to switch them over to wood chips.
Well, it's interesting you say fossil fuels are cheap, because I think if you spoke to the many people who heat by propane in this state, I don't think they would call it cheap, and I don't remember that the last time that gas was $2.92 a gallon or $2.99 a gallon that people thought that was cheap. We get used to things, unfortunately, and we can't afford to get used to these things.
Yeah, and then I think that's a good role for government to take the long view. So like, well, where do we want our money to go? We want it to go locally, and do we want to invest in something that's going to be a stable price for the long term? And that's always been the promise and the benefit of renewable energy, and it's the same with wood or with renewable electricity, that it's going to be a stable price for many years, and we can budget that in and also know that it's creating local jobs and feel good about how we're doing. And we can do it sustainably, and we can do it in a way that keeps our air clean. So
let me put you on the spot for a second.
All right, I'm ready.
I know you know how to draft legislation because you used to draft it when you were. I used to come to you as chair of the committee and say, I need you guys to draft up something here. So have you thought about what do you think is going to be the first thing that you're going to draft up and have introduced as a bill to try and?
Well, I've been focused on just getting through the primaries first, but I have thought that clean transportation. I think if we look at greenhouse gases, that's what we have to do something about our transportation structure. And so I've been thinking how we can take the lessons that we've learned in the electricity sector and apply them to the transportation sector. So I'd maybe like to be on the transportation committee and really kind of look at transportation in a total different way and have a big bill that we can kind of work on some big things, but I think there's small things that we can do with our gas stations. I think a lot of gas stations throughout the state are not just gas stations, but kind of centers of community. Like they have delis. The gas is like a side thing. People hang out in the convenience store,
Right.
At least kind of in the part of Washington County that I spent a lot of time in. That is kind of this old general store.
Right.
And even though I want to switch over to all electric transportation, I don't want to just leave behind these kind of community centers. So I'd like to see a way that we can shift them away from gas stations to electric vehicle stations. And a lot of them are in good locations for electric charging. And they're there and they're successful as gas stations because they're in the centers of communities and along rights of way, good places where people are driving. So I think the gas stations, instead of them fighting electric transportation, is like, if there's a way for them to have electric charging stations so people come in and
Sure.
need to spend 20 minutes
Right.
to go in and buy things in their convenience store,
Right.
I'd like to find a way to bring them into being supportive of that transition. I think that's kind of like you remember when we started with electric renewable energy, the utilities hated it.
Yes.
And the utilities were our number one enemy.
Yes.
But now Green Mountain Power is just trying to do as much renewable as they can. And when CVPS was still around, even though they used to hate it and say
Right.
that we're going to kill line workers and
Right.
ruin Vermont, before they got bought by Green Mountain Power, they were bragging about their wind farm and their solar arrays. So we saw a transition, and I think we could see that same kind of transition with gas
Right.
stations
Right.
and with fossil fuel
Right.
companies like
Right.
Bourne's and others that have adopted
Right.
hey, we'll sell fossil fuel if that's what people want, but we'd rather sell them pellets. It's
Right.
non-toxic. It's a
Right.
lot easier for us to deal with than all the rules around oil.
Well, it's going to take someone like you who has the work experience and the experience, and who doesn't come off as being a crazy wacko out there that supports every wild scheme that comes along. You are the type of person that is absolutely most suited to take the state forward.
Yeah, I think having some energy background and how the regulatory system works, how the PUC works, since I've been around that, it's easier to not get sidetracked because there will be lobbyists and advocacy groups that will try to stop any progress along this path. And you need somebody in the building that can gain the trust of the other senators and legislators that they know what they're talking about.
Right.
And I think you had that when you were the chair of the Energy Committee. They'd say like, okay, if Tony says it's good, it's going to be good. And it would be great to have more of those kind of people.
Well, the role that I played, and as I see you playing, because you don't have any private stake in any of this, okay? I didn't have any private stake in any of it. And therefore, you can play what I call the referee between all the players, the private side, the regulated utility side, the regulators, the police, the Public Utility Commission, the legislature. You can be that person because you've done it and have the experience that knows how to touch all the bases to make this thing go forward. And unfortunately, and it's not a knock on anybody that is returning to the legislature this year, there is not a person there who has that kind of experience anymore. And that's why, from my perspective, it is really important that you win this primary, that you become one of the three candidates, and that you go on to victory in November.
And I will be an active senator because I know that's what it takes. It's one thing to show up and vote, or one thing just to be active in the committee, but it takes somebody to be active in the whole building.
Right.
and work with the entities outside the building and work with the legislature and the groups that are in the
But you
building.
also understand, because you had to do this, you know that there are a lot of egos in
Yes.
that building, especially in the Senate. So I know that you're not going to be barging in there and go, wait a minute, stop the music. I know what's best. You'll listen to me.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. You have that skill set. You've got the know-how. You know how the game is played. And that's very important that we have.
And I
that
think
kind
I
of
can,
leadership.
and I think I can work together with, even though there's some things that the administration on renewable energy I disagree with, but there are places where we can work with them on it, and I think I can work together with them to get things done, and work
Whatever
with the utilities.
administration. is
Yeah,
there.
whatever administration is there. This one or a new administration, new senators, the current senators,
Right.
the current utilities, the current PUC.
Right.
I do know all the players, and I think it's going to be helpful to get new innovative things through.
So I'm going to remind you of something. When you serve in the Senate, you serve on 2 committees. So
Yes.
You mentioned transportation. Do you have another one in mind?
I don't. I mean, I will work with the Senate Pro Tem where they want us to have an active senator, to work hard.
Well, I have a suggestion for you.
Okay,
And that
where
would
do you
be
think
the
I would
Natural
be?
Resources Committee.
Yeah, well, that would be good, and there's a lot of obviously energy work to do there, and I didn't know if my position at the Clean Energy Development Fund would make any of that difficult. So that's why I thought, transportation could be.
I don't think so.
But yeah, if I can do it without any conflict of interest, then the Natural Resources
Right.
Committee would be great. But
Right.
I definitely want to be helpful to the
Right.
Senate in getting other things passed as well. So wherever they think I could be of use, there's interesting things that could be done in economic development.
Right.
Of course, if you're on finance, all the utility stuff goes through there.
You know, I got to tell you, it's been a long time since I've been excited at all and this excited by a candidate running for office.
Well, thanks,
in
Tony. I
this
hope
state.
I can live up to your
Well,
expectations.
I know that you can, and that's why I'm excited about it, because we have an opportunity to put somebody there, who already has the experience, has the history, the know-how, the ability to get along with people, the ability to park your ego, and be there to get things done. You're you're not representing industry, you're not representing advocacy groups. You're with a deep, rich, positive history, and
and I want to
the
get
better
things
one.
done. Okay, and I want to get in there, and I want to get things done. And if I'm not getting things done, I'll move along.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think so.
You think we have enough?
We do now. August 14th is a primary, November 6th is the general, and I hope that everybody gets out there and votes.
Yes, definitely.
Well,
You can
you're
vote
gonna
early.
you're gonna edit this.
Yep.
So the last thing I want to say to you is, don't be shy, as I know you're not, and we've got to spread the word
Yeah.
that people have to cast at least one of their 3 votes for Washington County Democratic Senate
Yep.
race for Andy Perchlik, and I urge everybody out there to tell their friends about the fine qualities that you have, and if anybody wants to call me, I'm easily found, it's just I just feel very good about your candidacy.
It's been a great experience, and people shouldn't vote alone, because the turnout is going to be low, and so the last primary election was decided by 1 vote. So I encourage people definitely to bring a friend.
Vote counts. Your vote
Every
counts.
vote counts. You can vote early. You can vote tomorrow, and find other people, because there's a lot of people that care.
Yes.
But they've been busy in the summer, they're out gardening, and they need somebody to give them a call or go by their house and say, hey, we're going to go vote today.
And as a justice of the peace in East Montpelier, I will be at the polls from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. manning the polls. So,
I used to do that in Marshfield as a JP in the select board.
so I wish you the best of luck, and I know that you're going to be very successful.
Well, thanks, Tony, and it's been great to have your support, and that's meant a lot to me.
Good.